Okay, hey everybody! Welcome to Facebook Live. I'm Kate Richburg, and next to me I have the owner and CEO of beadshopdotcom. You guys, it's Janice Parsons.
Hi.
Oh my gosh.
Happy day before Thanksgiving.
Yes, it's great to see everyone.
Yeah.
You know, I have been trying to persuade Janice to come on Facebook Live with me ever since we started a few weeks ago. And so I finally had to say, you know what, Janice, we're talking about thread.
Yes.
And so she's all, then I'm on.
I'm in.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because this is a really, this is
Yeah.
close to my heart.
Yeah.
I've always, well, you and I have always had this discussion. You know, you're the wire lady,
That's
I'm
right.
the thread lady. It's
Wire,
always the
wire.
battle of,
Yes.
you know, which is the backbone of jewelry making.
That's
and
right.
today we're going to prove it's thread.
Yes, and last week I proved it was wire. So, you know, the struggle continues.
Yeah.
But before we get started with that, you guys, we have been so overwhelmed, Janice, with the response to our Facebook
Yes,
Lives. Isn't
crazy.
It?
It's crazy.
Pretty amazing.
Internationally.
Hello,
Hi.
you
Yvette
guys.
in England.
Hi,
Oh,
Yvette
great.
in England. Or cheerio,
And
Yvette.
Gita just
Our
joined.
Gita, who always is so helpful during our broadcasts. We really appreciate it.
Could we just
We
stop for a
have-
second and just
Yeah.
mention the new international
Do you
shipping?
want to?
I know.
Yeah, I
You
really,
guys,
really do.
Do it.
This has like taken us 5 years. It's been something I've worked really hard on, and that is inexpensive shipping worldwide. So
Overseas.
right, so we've been able to do it to Canada, and now we've got a carrier, APC, that's going to allow us to do $10 shipping first class with tracking to every place else. So England, Holland, Australia,
New Zealand.
yes, good day.
Everywhere. Good day. Everywhere. Hello.
So now you can select $10, or I call it $10 check, $10 shipping worldwide.
Yeah.
We're really excited
Because
about it.
not
so.
only can we be your bead shop stateside, but we can be your bead
Right.
shop worldwide,
Right.
which is awesome. And it's so awesome. We really worked hard on that.
Yes,
So
yes.
it's been a long time coming. So
Yeah.
we're super excited. And there's more details. If you go to our fact page or
Yes,
shipping
shipping.
page,
Yeah.
it's all detailed there. So you'll see all of the details about it
Yeah.
there. We've got, you know, there was a couple of emails, a couple of things that kind of really touched us last week that resulted from our Facebook Live. And one was from our customer, Kim, who has been a longtime Facebook Live watcher. And it really was heartwarming. She shared with us, and I read it out loud to everyone here in the office, that these Facebook Lives have kind of helped her reignite her creativity. Which, you know, is really important to us. That's really part of our mission statement. So
Totally,
it's
totally.
really great. So Kim, we're glad that we helped you reignite. And then we had Tina. Tina is one of our Beater Showcase participants.
Yes.
And she gave us kudos to one of our new projects, Treasure Chest, which she really liked, and rightly so, because the
You designed
designer
it, is
of
right
that
here.
treasure chest must have been amazing.
Really was.
Really was super.
Yeah,
But I'm so
yeah.
glad you liked it. Thanks. I
Yeah.
know, right? Right?
Yeah.
Who knew? So it's great. So thank you so much, you
Well, I
guys,
knew.
for.
I
Well,
knew.
you did
Yeah,
know,
I know.
actually.
I know, yeah.
Because do you guys know that I have been working with this woman on and off at the bead shop and beadshop.com since 1992.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm
Yes.
coming up on my 25-year anniversary of beading and learning.
Amazing.
And, you know, it's pretty cool. So it's so thanks,
And
JP.
I don't want to say I begged to get you back, but
Well.
I worked hard over a period of years to convince you that this was your path, and that sort of segues into your path to beading,
Right.
and stringing,
That's
and
right.
thread.
And thread. I'm not leaving my metalworking
No.
behind. I know my metalsmith
And we're going to bring that
Yeah,
in.
we
We're
are.
going to bring in more wire.
So you're
in
going to see more
2017.
wire. You're going to see some cold connections. You're going to see some great stuff. So don't worry. I'm not leaving my metalsmithing world.
No.
I'm just embracing my bead
Yes.
world again.
Yes.
So Janice, we've got a lot to share
We do.
with people today.
We
So, you know, there's a couple of things I wanted to mention, and I'm going to mention this again at the end. But we have under our, look at this table. Look at Grace, pan over and just see how many amazing things we've got here to show today. But one of the things that I wanted to share before we got any further was under our project page and our projects, we have a section up on our top bar that says projects. And then you drill down, you go to skill builders, and then you hit class handouts, and we're actually going to show you one of our classic pieces, Tin Cup. But our class handouts, you guys, are kind of left over from the days of the bead shop, brick and mortar.
Yeah.
And these are
Amazing.
amazing handouts. And this is our Tin Cup handout here. And again, we'll show it a little bit later. But those resources, our class handouts, are such great free resources for you guys. And this is a really amazing one. So check those out a little bit later. Don't stop watching us right now, but it'll be great for you to check out a little bit later.
And I think it's a really, this weekend is the perfect opportunity to take a couple of hours and just wander through our project section, our skill builders, the class handouts. There's the autumn lookbook, which is at the top of the project page, which is entries from many beaders a year ago, inspired by autumn.
And I was totally inspired by it. We were looking at it the other day, and I
Right.
was like, look at this.
I know,
It was
I know.
amazing.
Even the staff here goes, "Oh, I didn't know we had that." So, take an hour away from shopping and eating and everything else. Take a walk, get in some exercise, but also take a little bit of time if you can and look at
some
at our
creativity
learning
time.
because it's all free and we want to share it with everyone.
So on that note, let's get to learning.
Yeah.
So when we were setting up for this, and Janice is a little bit more of a planner than I am. I like to be a little more, to say the least, right? I like to be a little more off the cuff, and Janice likes to plan. So we meet like somewhere in the middle here.
Right.
And so she's laid out kind of our whole thread family here, from the finest weight all the way to the heaviest weight. And then we have over here, Gracie, you can kind of show everybody, we've got some of our samples that we're also going to talk about that use those particular thread sizes. And then we have this for later reference. This is our Stittionary, and it kind of follows along what we're going to show here. We have additional threads here on our kind of like our thread timeline, or our thread family line here, but this also shows our threads from thinnest to heaviest, and you can find that also under our project page, under our skill builders, our Stittionary as well.
And I just want to do a shout out to Brittany Ketchum, who did this, when she was actually living nearby and working here full time, and it's just been an enormous help to visually be able to see, oh, that's how thick the thread is.
Yeah.
And then also you want to just mention tricks to laddering. Is also part of it. Could we?
Yeah, let's open that sucker up. So our tricks to laddering is our free PDF handout that's under our on our projects page. You go to tricks to laddering, and there's a little button that says download PDF. Well, when you download the PDF, you guys, this is what you're going to get. And this was the first time I looked at this. I mean, it's really incredible. We talk about the whole sizes of beads, what threads. It focuses on laddering, but it's really applicable across the board. You can see we talk about the different things, threads with for beads with small holes, and we continue on regular to large hole beads, and then we move forward to beads that have larger holes like that, and cords as well. So it's kind of, it's almost,
it's really a primer.
It's
for
really
thread.
exactly
It's not really
a tricks to laddering.
I just went nuts with
it's
okay,
pretty
get
incredible.
it all out of my head and call
And
it tricks
here.
to laddering,
Yeah.
but it's tricks to thread.
Yeah,
really.
it's
So.
pretty amazing. So you can download
Good
this.
times.
Yeah, good times. Good times. Welcome to Delicious Dish. Janice and I have always had that. We love that Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah,
good
good
times.
times.
Good times. All right, let's have some good times with the thread. All right. So hey, Janice. So let's get started with this, and maybe we'll just say what these are. Yeah, and go down the line.
So we started, I started to lay out all the cords that we use here, and when someone says, well, what one should I use or what one should I have in my studio, I say you probably should have, let me move this out of the way, you probably should have a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Because you definitely need, I'm going to put over here, this is your skinny threads. And those are used for looming projects. They're used for micro macrame. They're used for knotting gemstones.
And this here, I'm just going to point out, this is Nymo.
Right.
This is KO, which is also a fine Nymo-like thread, and Hana. So these are kind of, you know, the thinnest of the thin. And then we go into our tough cord and our micro Ceylon, which are also thin, but a little thicker than these guys here.
And they all perform differently.
They do.
So there are beaters who prefer Nymo. There's some who prefer Hana. I've had when I first opened the shop, the only thing that
was
was
Nymo.
available was Nymo. That was
And
it.
it was available in black and white, really.
Yeah, and then there was also silk. But what we found with Nymo is that it does something called gorilla hair, and that after a period of time of stringing, it gets sort of, you get these fibers like gorilla hair. But there are many bead artists who swear by it. So this is a new thread out of Japan. This is a fairly new thread out of Japan. They're virtually the same. They just come in different colors. This one is twice as many yards as that one. Then there's tough cord in 0, which is a little stiffer than those. And they all are strong cords. They're all in the nylon family. There's nothing we're showing you here today that's silk. We are going to talk a little bit about wax linen, but there's really no cotton and there's no silk in this pile of collection. Pile of collection. And that's primarily because there are threads now for looming and weaving and laddering, and they're so much stronger than like a thin
natural
cotton
thread. Yeah.
So,
And silk is something that I know is both near and dear to both of our hearts, and we're actually going to do a whole Facebook Live in the future focusing on silk, because silk, when you use it, has some very specific steps that allow it to be more longer lasting, right?
and we probably should just talk a second about
We do have these guys.
about the silk with the needle attached, and it you should have this also in your bead
let me put it
studio.
there.
And they come in a variety of sizes from 0 to 12, 13, 14. This one was done, this is the one that's in tin cup, and that was done, I believe, on a size 4, and that is silk.
And
But it's a separate
it's
discussion.
a separate discussion completely.
So-
And this, the silk with needle, how it's twisted on the needle, especially when you have threads that are exposed, like in this tin cup or float necklace, as you also hear it called, that finish, that twisted finish, really translates perfectly to this project here.
So you could not successfully use like this,
Right,
like
for something
the
like
Hana
this.
for that. These kinds of threads, at least these 3, you almost really want to have it doubled either in the hole or
Covered.
doubled with your needle. But an exposed float like that really requires a thread that is like a really teeny tiny cord, so that it looks like a rope, because it's going to be exposed and it's going to
get some wear that wear.
Yeah, so this necklace is almost 6 years old, and I wear it like all the time, and it's still held up.
Yeah, held up
But
beautifully.
it's because it's on that
twisted
the twisted cord.
And these are some, just so I know you guys know what looming and stuff looks like, but this is our Pathways cuff right here, and this is our Tricks to Looming, the Grand Canyon, I think.
Yeah.
This one is. These are both loomed pieces and would be appropriate for this Hana and Nymo.
Right.
Okay. So then our next family.
Then our next family is kind of the kind of thinner threads that you would use for like stones and fire polish, where you could use them single or double depending on your hole size. And this is sort of like the, we're talking about tough cord green 1. This kind of bridges between these two, between the skinny and then the kind of not, so it's not, these are not overweight and these are not underweight. These are just sort of like we're getting into the kind of medium weight.
Yeah, and they have a little more strength, a little more body to them.
And they actually can be used. You can think of these as being used singly. They're heavy enough, and especially tough cord. We seem to use tough cord in so many projects, and some of you have asked. This is a question we've been asked. When are you going to get in hematite in number 2? And we're not sure why some colors have a 1, 2, a 3, and then they skipped 4, and then they went to 5. It's a little factory in the United States, and they kind of do what they want, and because it's such great cord, we just say, okay, we'll take what you have. But the 2 is just a bit heavier, and we always recommend for laddering, if you can get the 2 through your beads.
It's a good way to go.
It's always better to go a little heavier.
And that's what was done with this one. This was tough cord.
Well, that was with 1.
With 1.
But it might have been able to go with 2.
With 2, because the holes on these are really big. And we're going to talk in a few minutes, you guys. We have kind of a little graph that we're going to share with you about how we actually go about choosing these threads.
Right.
And then this one, is this a...
That's a macrame.
And that's our next group, right?
This is our next group, which is the regular Ceylon. So in this middle group is the fine weight Ceylon. Then we go to the regular Ceylon, and then you kind of jump to tough cord, the hematite 5. Then it goes to Chinese knotting cord in 4. Then tough cord in 7, then Chinese knotting cord in 5 millimeter, then 8 millimeter, and waxed linen. And you can get much bigger, and then you start to go into the cord category. I mean, even though this is called tough cord,
it's really a thread.
It's, I consider it a thread because it's for stringing beads. And this is one, this is the Odyssey project. And this was done with wax linen, and like the silk with the needle, this is really a twisted. It's in this case 4-ply. So there's 4-ply, 3-ply, 2-ply. That means that there are 2 linen cords that were twisted together. And actually, years ago, one of our first projects was the Across Cultures, this one.
That's that one there.
And when Brittany did the first sample, there was one where we could only get 2-ply linen through it. So the handout talks about taking the 4-ply and
stripping it down.
Yes,
we used
to get
do
the
that.
2-ply.
I remember.
So that's not as good as using an original 2-ply, but you could do that. So these 2 projects.
Yeah, and the wax linen, I think that's something that we used way back in the day at the bead shop. I love it too. It's
great.
If you have a tendency, and I think it's a stringing material that doesn't get used that often anymore. And I think if you do things that have kind of a organic flair to them or a tribal flair to them, the wax linen is just a dream to work with. And since it's waxed, you guys, you can see it kind of makes its own needle. So see how I run my fingers down it, and see how, can you see that there, Gracie? Can you see how when I kind of poke at the end of it, how stiff that stays? So this, as a single strand, just really works really nicely with its own needle. I need to get back to working with wax linen. Yeah, question, Gracie.
Is tough cord 2 about the same as Ceylon cord or 5 millimeter Chinese knotting cord, I'm assuming?
Tough 2.
Tough 2, is it about the same as a Ceylon? Or it says Ceylon, but maybe a regular Ceylon?
It's about, tough 2 is about the same thickness as the fine weight Ceylon. So the regular Ceylon is more with the 3. So if you wanted to replace your tough cord in 3, you would go with the regular Ceylon. This is a little bit heavier than the 3 tough cord. Let me this is just kind of, so let me show these. This is the Tough 3, and this is the regular Ceylon. Can you see that? And then this is the number 2. Let me just hold that down with
There we
that.
go.
And then this is the fine weight. Is this no? Is this the fine weight?
Yeah, that's the fine.
This is the fine
And then
weight.
this is the micro
So
here.
the fine weight is a little bit heavier than the 2.
Which is really why that assortment, I feel, is really needed, because
Yeah.
sometimes you just have to, finesse it just a little bit, and where, a slightly thinner thread will work a little bit better.
So when let's say you're stringing your beads and you're using a needle, and as you string the beads on, because your thread is doubled, and as you string your beads on, you're suddenly realizing, oh, my thread's feeling warm.
Right. Yeah.
When your thread is starting to feel warm, it means that the thread is too big, because
That friction.
the friction that the bead is causing as you move it down your thread is literally warming up your thread. Or if you're noticing that as you use your needle and you have to force your bead on, that it's starting to fray near where the needle is at that point, it can either be that the needle is a little too big for the beads, and as you're shoving it through, it's fraying your thread, or the thread itself,
Is
like
too
doubled
big.
over, is
Yeah.
too big. And
Because that
that's-
little junction is
yeah.
bulky.
and that's why you want to have on hand, multiple threads. So when I go traveling, I'm always looking for new clasps. That's my go-to thing. And I think anyone who is putting together a bead studio, when you're traveling, stop and go to craft stores or bead shows or bead stores and buy some new threads.
Experiment with that
try
one.
a new thread.
And that kind of brings us to, well, how do we actually choose our threads? And, this is something that, since we've been doing this for so long, we just think, oh my gosh, you guys should, people should just
Everyone
know
knows
this. But actually they don't. So when Janice and I were sitting down and talking about this, we came up with this little graphic, and it's kind of the 4 factors for choosing thread. And it's like, that vicious circle. One leads into another. One leads into another. So, Janice, what's the first thing when you are designing that you think about? Which is the one on this wheel?
The first thing I start with is I start with my design. I don't worry about what's going to fit with what. I get my design. That's really the most important thing. You put no blinders on, no boundaries to what you do, and you work on your design. And then the other thing is the performance. Am I reselling it? Is it going to have to be something that
Really stands the test of
I'm not
time.
wearing it, and
Right.
or I'm giving it as a gift? And I want to do a shout out to one of my goddaughters, Chelsea, hi out there, who loves my jewelry, and I love making things for her. But she's very hard on her jewelry, and so when I'm making something,
when it's
her,
for Chelsea,
when it's for Chelsea, I know I have to use like a special thread.
not all the way up there.
So if I'm making something for let's say my godson who is hi Chad, who skateboards and surfs, and I know he's going to wear it in the shower and he's never going to take it off, I'm going to use a thread or a cord that's going to perform. So those
right.
are the things you have to think about.
And so then, after we've kind of done our design and performance, then you really have to take a look at the holes of the beads, started examining the beads themselves,
Yes.
right? And take a look at the hole size.
Yeah, you can say, oh, I want to do this as a float, or I want to weave it, or I want to do something with it. But the first thing you absolutely must do is you have to look at all your hole sizes, and you have to always decide on the smallest hole size
That's the thread you're aiming for.
That's the thread you're aiming for.
And so that then, and something like that big multi-strand that's over there, let's grab that. Something like this kind of classic design that we've done for years. This has a real mix of beads. So when we're thinking about beads that are really, really large or beads that are really, really small, like these seed beads have such tiny holes, that's where you have to think about the happy medium, right? What's going to fit those tiny ones, but what's going to be heavy enough to hold a weighty necklace like this. So this really is, considering the bead holes, that's really this in action here.
Well, the secret to that necklace, though, is that each strand on its own is not that heavy.
Exactly.
So it's really like a bridge that you need strong cables, but you don't need one to hold everything up.
Right. The weight is...
The only thing that needs to hold everything up here is this clasp. So that is really important, that it's strong enough. But the individual strands themselves, they're not that heavy.
They're not that heavy.
Yeah. What did you string this on? Do you remember?
I do. So this, we can kind of pull it apart. I want to see if I do. Sometimes I do single and sometimes I do double. This is a double, and I think I used regular Ceylon, probably this exact color and this exact thread. And this is, thread, the hand of thread is just so incredible. So that's why I'm an old school stringer. I love to string on thread.
Yeah.
So what's our next thing that we consider is we segue into thread.
So once you have you've looked at your bead holes, and not all beads are equal. If you are working with pearls, for instance, one of the only bead categories where we have consistent hole sizes are in freshwater and cultured pearls. They are almost always small, no matter what size you pick. They're all pretty small and consistent, so you need a fine thread for that. If you go with a glass pearl, it's going to have a larger hole size. If you go to, if you're using like gemstones, and this is an interesting thing about gemstones, is that they are sold by either carats or by weight, and so you did this one. This is
that's
done.
a good example.
This is apatite.
Yeah, it is apatite.
Okay. So when those beads are made, and those are from India, they sell them by weight, and so if they gave us a nice size hole. First of all, the gemstone might crack if you do too big of a hole, but they also would lose money because they're drilling a big hole. Whatever they're drilling out goes on the floor, and then they sell it to us, and it's
and the way that
so they give us the smallest, tiniest hole. Like, look at these. These are just, I mean, you can hardly see them, and so this kind of a bead would be knotted more than likely, or KO would be used double, or you might even go to, okay, I want to string them, but I'm going to use something really fine like a wire.
Nylon-coated wire cable.
Yeah.
Something like this, though, since these apatite beads, the other thing about semi-precious beads is, you guys, do you have that Sharpie? Where did that Sharpie go? I have this pen. This will work just fine. But if this is the bead, you guys, right here, can you see this? If this is my bead, okay, and it's maybe a rondelle or whatever, the drill, when something like this, when it's drilled, it's usually drilled from one side. And I'm greatly exaggerating this, but a lot of times one side of the bead hole is larger and one side is smaller. And that happens a lot with semi-precious beads like this because they just drill them from one end. They don't drill one side and then come in and drill the other. So this is something also that you need to be aware of when you're doing something like this semi-precious.
I would just like to add to that. There are gemstones, not done as much now as in the old days, where they did drill from both sides. And you'll see that they drill here, and then you get the gemstone home, and they come in from the other side, and I bet there are people who can say, hey, that's me right now, and that you go to string it, and the bead hole is sort of
askew, a little
like
wonky.
this, and then it's like this, and you may be able to get anyone out there, has that happened to them? It's happened to me.
Yeah.
So they're not doing this as much anymore.
But it's still a factor.
And this now we're seeing more and more machine drilled, and of course less of the high quality gemstones from the old days. But
Questions?
that's another.
Any, Grace? We're doing all right? Yeah. So that's something else you want to really take into effect. And so something like this, I used probably.
Somebody
Yeah.
has experienced that many
Yeah.
times.
Yes.
Yeah.
See?
Yes.
Yeah.
You're not alone. So something like this fine weight, or this micro Ceylon, I could probably double over. Anytime I string gemstones like this, and these are knotted in between, I want a doubled strand of thread, not only to make the knotting easier, but also for strength purposes.
And these, with these fine smoky topaz, which are so small, I would say KO or Hana. I mean, if they're that small.
Tiny, tiny.
Yeah, tiny, tiny. Okay.
So let's bring our little thing back. So we've talked about the thread, so our design, our bead holes, our thread, and then finally we need our tool for it, right?
needle,
Our needle. And I have a whole ton. You guys, there are as many needles as there are beads, it seems like, and it feels like, when I'm trying to figure out, well, what needle do I use? There's so many to consider. Talk about choosing the needle, Janice, and then we'll
Okay.
talk about these individually.
Okay. So if I were going to start from scratch and say I need needles in my studio, I would have a group of flexible eye needles, which when they're fairly thin.
Show it on the white when you.
Oh, show it on the white.
So they're fairly thin, and they're called flexible because when you put the thread through and you put your first bead on, shall we do that?
Yeah.
You want to do that?
I'll get that.
So this is Kate's going to get a piece of thread and do that. So those you need, I can't live without them. And I use them with pearls, I use them with gemstones. We carry a medium weight. You could also look for a fine weight, but then they get so thin that
they're hard to. They're too thin.
so this one seems to be a good size for both gemstones. And you could what are you stringing?
And so I'm gonna put these guys on so they
Okay.
can see it. So you guys, when we were talking before about that bulk, about where your thread might shred, this is the junction that we were talking about right here. So when I start by putting my bead on, and this is a flexible eye needle, and this is fine Ceylon.
And that's Red Creek
And
Jasper.
Red Creek Jasper. And so the hole, I chose it because the hole was pretty big so you could see it pretty well, and so I could use heavier weight thread. So as I bring it up to the eye of the needle, see that? I'm going to grab it and just pull. That first little pull can be a little difficult. So you pull it, you pop it over, and see now how that eye of the needle has become a little bit elongated. So now I can just continue to thread my beads right on the thread here, or string my beads right on the thread. See that there? And the other thing you can see how these beads, they move around, but they're not like slipping and sliding all over the place. So that's one of the tests that I do, is I move it around like this.
So let's say you want to put a pearl on there now. Try that. Will that thread work with
Let's
the
take
pearl?
a look. And this is, part of, and I think I mentioned this in earlier broadcasts, it's auditioning the beads,
Yep.
right, and checking. So see this? That is a no-go.
So you have to go to
I'd
a
have to
thinner
go down
thread.
to a fine.
So you want to try the fine and see if the fine works.
I've got it right here.
So while you're threading that, I'm going to talk about the next needle, which is the collapsible eye. And the beauty of this needle is that if you're doing laddering, or you're working with, you're doing a single thread and you're just doubling it over and you have this like a little short tail. The nice thing about this is this little thing at the end grabs right there. It grabs your thread, and so for instance, if you're laddering, you're doing an infinity stitch, your needle doesn't slide around. Let's say you bring your thread through and then you're doing you're doing something else, and then you go, oh, so like with this needle, the flexible eye needle, you'll go, where'd my needle go?
Right, because it'll fall right off.
Right. So now that's the fine weight, and that works.
So you can see, let me pop another one on here. So I'll put this on, put it through, and again, pull it on. And you can see that the pearl slides nicely over this. It's not going to fray my thread. And this thread is still big enough that these Red Creek Jasper are nice.
Right, right. So it's not a perfect world, you know, but you don't want to go too thin. And if you're adding, let's say, fine gemstones to your design, then more than likely those threads won't work, and you have to think about maybe using like soft flex or a beading wire, and you may not be able to use a thread because the holes are too small, or you need to knot them, and that we're going to talk about that another time,
In a future
right?
time.
Yeah.
We've got some more needles here, though.
Oh yeah. So
where these are flexible. These
are the collapse. They're
Pardon
both the needle
itself,
collapses.
yeah,
Yes.
and they're both a flexible wire.
Right, right. So those are must-haves. You must have those. This a lot of people like because it opens.
This is what we
and
call.
you can put a thread of any size. The same thing with the flexible and the collapsible. The eye is nice and big, so you can put a thicker cord or thread through, and then it collapses down. And the same with the big eye needles, and they come in
Different
in
lengths.
assorted lengths. And I would say it's good to have a package of these in your bead studio.
I use these a lot.
You do?
Actually, I
Okay.
do. Sometimes when my flexible eye needle is frustrating the heck out of me and I can't keep it on my thread,
Right.
what I do is I'll just reach for because this flexible eye needle is still pretty thin, right? So it fits through a lot of bead holes. But like if I'm just
you mean the
stringing
big eye?
the big eye,
Big
yeah,
eye,
the big
okay.
eye. It fits through a lot of bead holes, and what I can do is I pull my thread down at the bottom, not
And it
too hard,
grabs it.
because you don't want to fray it, but it grabs my thread. So if I'm trying to pass, like where's
Will the pearls work with that?
oh I don't know,
So
let's see.
you
And this is the regular; it's not the thin.
can we try it with the fine?
the micro.
No, with what you were stringing with the
This
Red
one.
Creek Jasper and the pearls. Will
That
it
was
work
this
with
one.
that? Let's just make sure. I'm very curious.
Inquiring minds want to know.
Yes.
Let me put this down.
And
Okay.
Question?
Karen says that she loves big eye needles, and it's also great for putting beads on yarn for knitting.
Oh,
good idea.
yeah. I
Yeah,
need to do
that's-
some knitting with beads.
Well, you need to teach me to
Yeah,
knit.
yeah.
I forgot.
I love
So will that
knitting.
work with that? No.
It
Will
won't.
it? No.
No.
And if you need pliers to get it on, maybe one bead, that's okay.
But
if
see,
you're doing,
even with my little,
Yeah.
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I wanted to seize this moment. It's starting to fray
Yeah.
right there, even
Yeah.
from that one little tug. So
Yeah.
that's a no-go.
so they're, they're good to have. And Karen, I think that's a great idea to make sure you have them for, like, knitting and crocheting. And do you need them for crocheting?
Yeah,
No.
anytime you have to string
Yeah,
beads
beads
on
on.
yarn.
Yeah.
The other thing I use it, like, let's throw me that piece
Throw
right
you.
there.
I'm
Throw
not
it.
throwing.
Gently hand that over. This is the necklace that I was wearing in last week's broadcast, you guys. And this is something that's kind of a classic that we do with like our vintage finds collection and stuff like that. But see how there are many strands of beads going through like this disc and this little mother of pearl piece here. That's also a way, this is a piece from our vintage finds. It's also a way, like when I have to get multiple strands of threads through a bead hole all
that's
at
a
one
great
time.
idea.
I use this and I just sail it right through. So I could string like 3 or 4 or even 5 strands
just
through
learned
this big eye
something.
needle. Really, you don't do that?
No, I
Really?
know.
No, I do that all the time with this big eye.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I really love it. So it helps me pass, a big, large bunch of threads. Like I would do the same thing when I went through these station beads right here, and I had to get all of my threads through, and I'd pass them through in groups, maybe a group of 3 threads and a group of 2 threads. But it's a great kind of handy dandy one for that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I used the collapsible
Do you?
for that, but
Yeah.
now I know I can use the big eye. I never.
Because again, sometimes that collapsible eye, those threads just want to fall right out.
So then, should we go on to
Yeah.
the next group of needles? So the next group of needles are considered English beading needles, and actually there are, I don't know, hundreds and hundreds of different
So
needles.
many.
And I don't even know that we have every needle we'd like to have. We just brought on the jewel loom needle, which is wonderful, and it's great for looming. Do you want to bring over?
Yeah, this is a loomed piece
So
right here.
these were designed for seed bead projects and looming and off looming of every kind, and they come. This is where the size of the needle really is important for the size of the thread and the bead hole, because if you're doing multiple passes in weaving, you have to be able to fit the needle through. You have to be able to fit your thread back through, and so we carry them in size 10, 12, 13, and 15.
And they get smaller as the number gets higher.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
Well, it's like wire.
And it's like,
Wire,
Yeah.
the backbone of jewelry design.
okay. But you're going to show how you flatten
Yeah, that little
it.
tip. Yeah. And so this was something that I think, Gita, you mentioned flattening the end of the thread with your plier. So do you want that white paper?
please.
Gracie. Our camera woman, we didn't even introduce. You guys who've been watching, you know that Grace Nolan, who runs our camera, she's our graphic designer here at beadshopdotcom, and she's amazing. So you can see I'm with the tip of my flat nose plier. This happens to be a bent chain nose, but I really flatten that out. It would also help if I waxed it beforehand and then flattened it a little bit. But what I do is I push the eye of the needle onto the thread rather than trying to push or to poke my thread through the eye. Yeah, and so see how that just went on. And you guys, I can't see anymore, so that was pretty good. Right? But that little tip of maybe perhaps waxing beforehand with beeswax, flattening that tip of the thread, and then setting the eye of the needle on top of the thread really works well.
So with the English beading needles, I use 10 and 12, and I would say, and I use them also, I use them for poetry. Do we have?
Yeah, I've got a poetry. I think you have it on that side.
Do I?
Underneath right there.
So it's also a great needle when you're using small pearls and you want a very narrow, thin needle, the size 10 or 12 fits
Fits through the pearl.
and fits through the tough cord, I believe. And they're just good to have. Do you need a 13 and a 15 if you do really fine micro seed bead work with size 13s or 15 seed beads? Then yes, you do need it.
Yeah, you
But
do.
otherwise, I would say it's great to have 10s and 12s in your
In
bead
your
studio.
stash. Yeah. And the way, you guys, I want to point out what the difference is between like beading needles and your sewing needles. Sewing needles, when you're stitching or sewing, and this is greatly magnified, but your sewing needle, the eye of the needle kind of puffs out a little bit. A beading needle is really fairly straight, and the eye just runs along it here. So like Janice was saying, it runs over that bead, goes through pretty easily. Sometimes if you're trying to use a sewing needle or a needle that's not made for beading, that may go on the needle, but it'll stop right here at the eye. You can't pop it over. So that's why you would get a beading needle for beading rather than looking in your sewing box to use your sewing needles.
Right.
Question.
Yeah, question.
From our current beater showcase, Linda, who's asking
Hi, Linda.
Hi, Linda.
what needles you recommend for the dual loom.
So it really depends on what you're looming. Now, I've been looming a lot of different things on the jewel loom. So when I did my piece, Treasure Chest, that is loomed with the shadows, I used this guy. I used the big eye needle.
You did.
With looming. You know, but this, like, let's say that I was doing a jewel loom and I was looming on this guy, and I would be using KO thread, that's when I used our regular jewel loom needles here. So again, getting back to our circle of choosing your threads, the design and the bead holes dictated the thread that I used, which then made me choose the needle.
And I think when I did that sample, I used the English beading needles size 10. We did not have the jewel loom needles,
At that
which
time.
they don't just work on the jewel loom.
Right.
They will work on looming.
On looming in general. Because, and they, specifically because it's so long.
Yeah,
right?
they're
so you
a
can
bit,
make a nice wide
right.
cuff.
They're a bit longer. What I like about the size 10 or 12 is actually it's shorter, so that if I'm running out of thread and I'm going back through to reinforce, a really long needle means
It's hard to make
it's
that
like having a
tight
long
curve.
big rig,
Right.
and you're trying to make a curve.
Right.
You can't. It's too long.
Right.
If you have a shorter needle,
Like a tiny smart car.
yeah,
It's the tiny
Yeah.
smart car.
or you have the shortest big eye needle, you can make that curve versus the jewel loom. You're kind of like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck with this now. But don't run out of your thread. It's a great,
It's a great one.
it's a great needle.
And you could, if your thread's not doubled over, you could change needles in your project, right?
Yes,
You could.
yeah. If you're if you're
If it's
using
not
a
doubled.
single thread, yes, you can.
So we have a little bit of time left, and I want to share something with you guys, and this is going to be kind of a precursor to what we do a little later with our pearl knotting. But I want to show you, where's that, that red necklace, or this one that's right here. Using an end tip, you guys. Now, Janice, we'll probably, we may have time to do it today, or we may actually do it in the future, about connecting a clasp, and you can see, like, without, this is a little bit different, but connecting a clasp without, just directly to thread. This is our Across Cultures piece, where this is actually connected with thread, with leather, and then this is our classic beaded loop closure that we use with our button and loop closure here. Also, a lot of times we just do a very simple strand of beads, and we connect a clasp to it. But I want to show you.
Well, you're
You're
doing
looking for
that
something.
If you, if you give me the Red Creek Jasper,
That one?
and I get a needle, and
you can use that
Then I
clasp.
can use that,
All
and if
right.
you just give
That'd
me
be
like the fine weight. Do you have the fine weight over there?
Who has the fine weight? Who has the fine weight out there? There you go.
Okay, I'll get this.
Doesn't your bead table always start to look like this, you guys? Right? Regardless of
Well,
how.
Julia Childs had that wonderful shelf underneath.
Right, and had someone from PBS under there handing her stuff.
Yeah, and
we
then
need
they
a
got
sous
to, and then
chef.
they ate it.
Right,
got to
they
eat all
did.
that stuff
Right, who's
later,
going to be
which
our
is-
sous chef?
I don't know.
I don't know.
Grace?
Grace. She's
Gracie.
busy. Gracie's busy.
Can we shout out to Tammy?
Yeah.
Just to say hi to Tammy.
Hey,
who
is our
manages-
Tammy Powley?
Yeah,
Is she watching?
I don't know. Tammy, are you out there? Or is she teaching
Tammy
at the
does
university today?
all of our, and you may have known Tammy from her
Princess.
days, yeah, as the about.com
Yes.
bead
Yes.
expert. She's written a whole bunch of books, but Tammy's the one who does our kind of manages all of our social media and stuff. So, and writes our blog posts, and so she's really fantastic. So
Yeah.
shout out, man. The bead shop is not an island, that is for sure. So you guys, an end tip is something that I use to connect my strand of beads to a clasp, okay? And we've got two kinds of end tips here. We've got a clamshell, which are little clamshells, it has a hole here, another little clamshell here, and a little hook. And we have one that's a cup that looks like this. okay, with the little hole here. Now these two things are kind of classic in the world of bead stringing. You can see I've got a clamshell end tip right here in action. And so I'm going to show you actually how I would just put that on. Here's that collapsible eye needle that we had earlier. Now this is a trick, you guys, that this is, I think, going to be an aha moment for so many of you. We need to make sure that our thread is, that our knot rather, is large enough so that our end tip doesn't pop off the end. Now if I were using especially fine threads, you know, you would come in and you'd go, oh, you know what, I'm just going to tie a knot, and then I'm going to try and tie another knot on top of that, and you're kind of playing around, you're trying to get it to sit right on top, and it's not doing that, and then you have, you're like, wait a minute, I'm going to make that happen, and then what you get are two little knots like this, right? Wah, wah.
Or you get it right on top of it, but then the weight of the necklace over time
Makes
stretches
it
the cord,
out,
and then,
yeah.
then they get like that.
Then they get like that and the end tip falls off. Instead of tying one knot on top of the other, what I do is, this is a simple overhand knot.
Don't forget to tell them who taught you this.
You taught me this.
Okay.
It is really true.
Okay.
She did. That one right over there. She did. You did.
I'm just
You
saying.
taught me everything I know. Come
No,
on now.
but-
Well, not metalsmithing, but
No, that
stringing
for
for sure.
no.
So I do a simple overhand knot, you guys, and then I'm going to pop this through one more time. And if it's a really fine thread, I might go through 3 times. Now I'll tighten my knot, and look at how I have one, as Janice would say, nice, big,
One juicy
fat, juicy knot.
Yeah.
Okay? So this is going to hold. And so now when I plop my clamshell end tip over, and the little hole is right between the clamshells in a clamshell end tip, it's right there. I'm going to poke around. Whoops, I had it in there, didn't I? I'm going to poke around. There it goes. And the hook is always down towards the end of the thread. Do we need Jen to get you something?
I need some Scotch tape. Can I have some Scotch tape?
So see how it sits in there? And I actually made that knot a little bit too big, but I wanted to show you how big you could make the knot. And then I'd add a little bit of my hypo cement. And every time we glue, you guys, we always glue on a plastic baggie. That is a bead shop rule, especially when you're doing it at the bead counter and you're going to get it all over the place. We want to just take off this hypo tube cement, and we're going to add just a little drop. We're going to pull this back, and we're going to add a little drop of glue to that knot. And this is hypo cement. You guys are familiar with that, right? And really get that in there. And we're going to, in real life jewelry time, if this were not demo time, I'd probably let that sit for a moment or two to just kind of firm up a bit, but you can also just slide your end tip right on it, and now you're gonna just go. So I'm gonna just grab a few beads, these glass pearls right here, and your first beads, remember your hook, go, and I'm just gonna string a few of these.
That's a common mistake, is
People
putting it on.
yeah, the end
And
tip
if you
upside
just
down.
remember that the hook part of the end tip, its purpose in life is to hook to the glass.
Right,
So if it's ready to hook to a bead, it's on the wrong way.
right. That's a good tip.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm gonna have you take over, and I'm gonna
Okay.
so string a few of these.
While Kate is stringing that, I want to just show you a little trick in how to use a heavy enough twisted or nylon thread, a tough cord. This happens to be Ceylon. I believe it's regular weight. These are the Red Creek Jasper. I'm using just a flexible eye needle. And pretend this is the beginning of even a beginning of a necklace. I've strung on 3 beads. I've gone through the loop of my clasp. I'm not using an end tip. And what I'm going to do is I'm coming back through this first bead, and I've got
my fine weight glasses, my beading glasses on. So I'm not going to really talk about how much thread you need and everything. I just want to show you this. So then I'm going to bring this up, right up to the clasp. I'm not using bullion. I'm not using really anything else. And then I'm going to just tape this down so this doesn't move, so that you can see this. And this technique is called Over the River and Through the Woods. So
Perfect for Thanksgiving, Janice.
that's right. So I'm going, and my thread is doubled. I'm making a loop.
Yes.
I'm going over the thread. Then I'm going under the thread and through the loop. And I'm going to bring it right up there, right next to the knot, next to the bead, I'm sorry. And then I'm going to separate the threads. That's one of the beauties
Of
two threads. I'm going to separate the threads to get a nice, delicious knot. And then I'm going to go back through that second bead. I actually should not have strung these beads on the other cord, but let me tighten this. And I'm going to shove that up, and if you can get in there, Gracie, and show how that knot is right there. Can you see that? Okay, then I'm going to do that again. And it looks like I've just gotten the threads through the middle, so I'm going to take this again. I'm going to go over the thread and under and through. It can be in either direction, it doesn't matter.
But you're really
Tighten
treating
it.
like a half hitch. That's a
Yeah,
half hitch
it's
knot,
exactly
Janice,
what you're
right?
doing, yeah. There are people who knot necklaces this way. They go the whole way.
Yeah.
They do it this way. This is not how we're going to teach you, but this is a great way to string a necklace without using an end tip, but it has to be done with a heavier cord.
Mm-hmm. A fine weight
Yeah.
would just not.
So let me
Would not do it.
cut this off. And then what I would do is I'd recommend right here at between the second and the third bead, I would just put a dab
Just a
of
dot
the
of
height,
glue.
right. Then I'd
So I
shove the
would-
bead
yeah,
up
right there, just
right
with
there,
a little hypo tube,
right in
bam,
there.
bam, bam.
right on the thread that's going to live in this bead. And then you're going to have these tails, right, which you will eventually cut, and then you could just from there start stringing. And there you go. And you do this exactly on the other side, and
All the
you've
way
got
around.
yeah, be careful. I think I made this just a little too tight. It will stretch a little bit with wear. Don't make it too loose, don't make it too tight, but the thing to remember with all of your threads is you don't want to stress them. They don't like to be stressed
No,
because
beads like to relax.
if it's too tight, if it's, looking, if your instincts are now, oh, it feels a little too tight, it's your thread talking to you and telling you it's too tight. So
Janice?
that's a little trick. Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you change size, like when you do in macrame.
Change
Change size.
doesn't matter. No, you can do it either from this side or you can do it from that side because it's only a half hitch and it's going to end up looking the same way. Yeah, good question.
Yeah.
So
That really looks great. And
Yeah.
so Janice, with the other end,
so I would cut this
You would
now.
just
I
cut
would
that?
cut this with these nice, wonderful tools.
those hair
And
thread
then
snips
from
are
the
great.
other side, you would put on your
last
you would-
bead.
Yeah, so this last bead, and then you would put on 3 beads. You'd go through, in this case, a bar. You would go through this,
Your toggle
and
bar.
then you would come back through this. And this is a little harder because now what you have
Because there are
to-
no knots
there's
here,
no-
right?
Well,
Or
there's no
nothing.
knots, but there's also, you don't want any space.
Right,
You don't
any
have the
slack.
luxury of space. So you have to make the loop there and then bring your thread underneath and through, separate them, tighten it. And that's why the flexible eye needle can kind of just, curve to get into this next one. Do your loop again, and then as you're doing this last one, put a little bit of glue on the thread that's going to live in here and then come out. Let it dry and then cut that off. It's kind of a sweet little tip.
Yeah, it is a good tip.
Drea says hi, and your mom said hi.
Oh, hi, Drea.
and my mama. Yay.
Hey,
Hi,
hi, Mama.
Gwenda.
Hi, Gwenda.
Oh,
Yeah,
Gwen, watching.
yeah.
She even mentioned, do you remember, this was earlier too, she said, do you remember when Gran bought a fishy bead at the bead shop?
I do. My gran, bless her heart, when she visited me, she's gone now, but she just loved the bead shop. And Gran came to our San Jose store once with my mom, brought her. And Gran was so overwhelmed. She loved costume jewelry. That's where I get my love of it, like you got it from your mom. And Gran just looked around and she came up with like a little bead. She said, "Oh, honey, just put this little fishy bead on a cord for me, honey. I want to wear that fishy bead." So it was pretty awesome. So yeah, I do remember for sure. Hand me those end tips, JP, if you
Okay.
would. So let's close this one up. Now, you can see I've knotted these little pearls just for fun with this dark thread. And the second way we would put, or the second side for that end tip, you know, when we started, we put this end tip so it slid down towards the end of the thread. And remember how Janice said the hook needs to be pointing towards the clasp. So we're going to put our thread in the opposite direction, coming up from underneath that end tip, just like so. And that comes on. Now, I tied an overhand knot to, or a series of overhand knots to get that thread on, or that knot tied. Here, I'm not going to do an overhand knot. I'm going to do actually a square knot. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bravely cut my thread and my needle away. And again, this is the beauty of having two threads. So see that, how I've split those two threads. Now a square knot is right over left, left over right. And we want to make sure, again, that this thread, the knot that we make is nice and juicy. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to go right over left, and I'm going to go through once, and I'm going to go through twice. And I'm going to nestle it firmly down into the cup of the end tip, but not, you know, pulling and pulling so it's super tight. Again, our beads don't want to be stressed. And then we're going to go right over left once and twice and complete that square knot and have that knot just sit nice and firmly in the cup of that end tip. Now, if we were using a not a clamshell but a cup end tip, it would be the same way except the knot would be exposed. Right?
Can we just show them something?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say I'm doing a project and you're going to glue now. You can tell which was your first side and which is your second side because the overhand knot, the threads stay together.
Right.
And with the square knot, they
split apart.
They split apart. And could we just also, can you hand me the needle with the silk on it? So for those of you out there who use end tips and use the needle end with the silk, no one else is going to show you that what you can do to end it like Kate has done it is you can literally untwist
Yeah, see this little end?
the cord, and you can have two threads so that you can end into an end tip like this. That everyone else will show you how you have to kind of somehow slide that
walk
needle
that knot down,
into
yeah.
the, and a bead shop original from 1982 is
cut this
it
thread.
and untwist it, have your two threads,
Tie your
knot
square
it,
knot.
make sure you make enough of a knot so you get a nice juicy knot, but you don't have to do that.
And then also, you guys, with this silk on the needle, work at this end. You know, don't work halfway down and then
Yeah.
cut this needle off, but work
Yeah.
at the end, because then if you have extra thread remaining, you can use it for another
Yeah.
project. Because this is
Yeah.
a 2 meter length.
Right.
So you can get, you know, if you're doing bracelets, you can get a couple of things
Right.
out of that.
Linda wants to know what thread you're using on this pearl piece here.
This pearl piece I used, just off the top of my head, I used the Ceylon, the regular.
Yeah.
And so that gives me a pretty big knot. Now, I'm a fan of seeing knots. I like my knots to be part of the design. So when I choose color, and this, again, this is demo time, not real jewelry
Katie,
making time.
I think you used fine.
Did I use fine?
Yeah, you
Oh,
used.
sorry.
Yeah, you used
I
fine.
did. Sorry.
See, there's
That's
the
regular.
Yeah, you used
I
fine.
lied. I used fine. Right.
Yeah.
I think I call this regular because this is the one that I use the most. And I just
Okay.
think that's my regular thread.
Okay.
But it is fine, Ceylon fine.
So think fine. This is fine for me.
This is fine.
fine
Nice
for
one.
me.
Right.
Fine for me.
Good one. I like that.
Gita has dubbed you guys the naughty professors.
Oh, I like it. Like this.
Hashtag.
Hashtag naughty professors. Thank you, Gita, all the way from Denmark. Thank you, thank you. So getting right in there, I'm going to drop that little bit of hypotube cement. And this little needle really makes me, you know what I didn't do? There we go. It's a rule. We always put a plastic baggie underneath. Get that there, and then we'll let that sit. Now, again, in regular jewelry making
Can
time...
I do a
would
little
you?
trick?
Yeah.
Okay.
What's that trick?
So my little trick to get the glue in is I put the tip, I get a little glue in myself, but I hold it right up against on my hand,
Oh,
and then I find it with
with the tip right
the
there.
tip, and I don't have the right
Nice.
glasses on, but that's what I do.
Oh, to
Now,
get it in
Brittany also, I'm not going to do this right this second. So Brittany also had a tip which was use a makeup sponge,
there. Right.
and to just don't bother with this anymore, and use a makeup sponge.
That is the smartest
just-
thing I've ever heard. And
Yeah.
then you put it in a little cup.
You
So
put it
it's
in a
sitting
little
up.
cup, or you put it back in the box and you stand it up. So
That's brilliant.
they always are better standing up in a cool thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll put that tip back in. But that's how I do it.
That's really smart.
And the thing is, you're in my light, and that's why I
Sorry.
couldn't do it. Sorry.
I'm in her light.
there.
There we
Okay,
go.
That
Perfect.
worked.
So now, what I would do is I would let these knots dry 24 hours, undisturbed. And then I would come in with my thread scissors. So let's say that the hands of time have swept, and I come in and I clip right up against the knot there, right up against the knot here, like so. And what I do is I close the hook. I'll add my clasp. I'll close the hook first. And I make sure that it's positioned just perfectly right there. And so see how it's nice and round. I didn't crush it, but I just swept it around. Now I'm going to gently, gently, gently close that clamshell nice and firmly with the tip of my chain nose plier. Get that a little, I'm going to look at it here so I can see it. There we go. So I have a nice closed clamshell. And then I'll do the same with the other side. Whoops, come back here. And again, grab that tip of the clamshell. That's my giant knot from earlier. But I loop it over. I don't flatten it or crush it. If I need to coax it into place a little bit, I can. And then I'll get that clamshell and close it. Whoops, I need to have it a little bit closer to me because I can't see anything that far. And these clamshells are not meant to open and close multiple times. If you need to adjust it just slightly, that's okay, but you don't want to open and close these or else the clamshell will break. So now we've got this really nice closure, and I think this toggle clasp is a classic. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Do the clamshells flatten when you use the flat?
They don't. The clamshells still are kind of open like this, and they hug the knot. So it's not like we're crimping them flat like a crimp tube. We're just hugging the knot with them.
They're like a little cabin in the woods that's protecting your thread.
Yeah, that's right.
But as far as the flat surface of the pliers go, it
No,
doesn't-
no, you're not crushing. We're not using that much
Yeah.
force. We're making jewelry. We're not building a house.
Yeah. So you just gently
hug
close
it.
Yeah.
So, wow, that was epic,
Really.
right?
I'm glad I got to join you today.
Me too. I hope
Yeah.
you're joined. We're going to do
I
this
had
again,
fun. I
right?
had fun. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
we've
hope-
got so much to teach you.
Yeah. I hope everyone enjoyed Kate having a teammate on.
That's my
It was fun doing this
team.
with you.
Good.
Yeah.
It was fun.
There's
right
a
here.
lot in my head.
Great job. Yeah, we've got to get it out for posterity, right? Well, as always, you guys, we like to end. Oh, we have a gift. Oh,
Oh,
Jen.
the gift. The
Jen, we
gift.
need our gift.
Where's our gift?
Oh my gosh.
So
We've
we're
got-
giving away a thread sampler
We
today.
are. We are.
Yeah. Where
Here
is
it is. Thank you, Jenny. Jen.
Thank you.
Jen is our
So this
one of our great
is
inventory people here.
this
She
is our
keeps us all
Facebook
together.
Live today. It's a
It's special.
Yeah, it's a really wonderful gift. It's a sampler of many of our most popular threads.
Yeah.
It's got Chinese knotting cord. It has fine weight Ceylon, regular Ceylon, and micro, and it has
A tough cord.
a
in
tough
it.
cord in it. And we're giving it away, right?
Yeah, so our first 10 viewers, you guys, when you place an order, the first 10 people who place an order, and in the comments, shipping notes, you put Janice loves thread. That's the buzzword.
Okay.
Janice loves thread. In the shipping notes, the first 10 we will send you your little thread sampler, which will be awesome. And you guys, now's the time. We are, it's that time of year for sales. So we started our cyber sale early. And you guys, everything until Monday on beadshopdotcom is 35% off, which is really the biggest sale of the year. Come
Yeah,
on.
it is. It is.
Yeah.
It's longest and the biggest.
The biggest.
Never done this before.
No. And so it goes through Monday. But also, I wanted to make sure you guys knew, if you haven't signed up for our newsletter, there's a couple of little business things I want to say. If you haven't signed up for our newsletter on our homepage at beadshop.com, our newsletter subscribers get a lot of special offers that we don't advertise anywhere else. And we have some amazing things, some doorbusters that are going out only for our newsletter subscribers. We've got, and those start tomorrow. So if you're not on our newsletter, go on, subscribe, and check your email in the morning, because come on now, it's going to be amazing. There's some great things. So if you add for the store-wide sale, it's Cyber 35. It's also on our website, so you can just add it there.
Gita wants to remind everyone about our $10 shipping.
I was going to
worldwide.
thank
Yeah,
you, Gita.
thank
And
you,
now
Gita.
$10 worldwide. Yes.
Which is going to be amazing.
Yes, we're so excited about that.
We have a couple, one more thing. We have our challenge, our bead challenge that's going on now with our Born Yesterday,
There's one,
which is right here. This is a project, or a project that Janice designed using our Vintage Finds collection. We have gotten some reviews until
December 2nd.
December 2nd. So if you go to our Born Yesterday project page, there's a Born Yesterday challenge. It's really pretty. I love it. I love it so much. And you'll see the Born Yesterday challenge rules. And you can win, I think you win a gift certificate, right? To beadshop.com.
You do, and then we also
We
publish
showcase it,
and
we give you the props. And some of our Beater Showcase winners are watching us right now, so it's pretty cool.
Right.
This is going to be a special one. So check
Yeah.
out our Born Yesterday
So it's a
challenge.
project where you can also take the pendant off and wear just the beads.
It's really delicious.
Yeah, it's a great project.
Yeah.
Even if you don't create an entry and submit it, it's really a wonderful project.
Yeah, it's a great project.
If I do say so myself.
And you should. And you
I
should.
guess, yeah.
Yeah.
It's really.
And
fun
you guys,
project.
as always, you guys have been sending me emails, calling me. I have the iPad is connected. Hello, we're on Facebook Live. You can always email me at kate@beadshop.com, and I'll be happy to answer your questions. So I guess, have we really covered everything?
I think so.
Is that it?
I think so.
So we'll be back in future to do some pearl knotting. Next week, I think we're going to continue on our thread trend and talk a little bit about some specific stitches that we use with some of our projects, and move along to some of our cords as well. But we'll be sharing some things like that, some stuff with laddering. So we'll be continuing on this thread path,
Right.
if
right.
you will.
And
So-
maybe next week we might even start with knotting.
With some
a
pearl
little bit.
knotting.
Yeah.
What do you think?
How does everyone feel about
Yeah,
that?
we want to learn to
Pearl
knot.
knotting?
Yeah, that's
Anyone
what we think.
out there
Anyone?
interested?
Anyone? Bueller? Anyone? Well, happy Thanksgiving
Yes.
to those of you who are stateside. Happy Wednesday and Thursday tomorrow for those of you who are watching us overseas. As always, we're super grateful for everybody who just helps us make this small business, going strong
Yes.
since 1982.
Yes.
So we're
Yes,
all of
for
us.
pearl knotting.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
for pearl knotting.
yes.
All right. Well,
Okay.
we'll see you next week.
Okay, next week, 10:30
All right.
a.m.
10:30 a.m. next Wednesday. Kate and Janice,
Okay.
beadshopdotcom.
Okay.
Cheers and cheers
Cheers.
to you.
Okay.
We'll see you next time, you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.